Hi Chris, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, Tony. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. It's lovely to see you this morning. And just wanted this is first part in a series of sporting chances lockdown stories. And the darts. We're starting with the darts. And do you mind telling us a little bit about um, who you are, and what you do, and and, uh, and what's going on for you today in lockdown.
Yeah, so I commentate on darts. I've been involved in darts for the last decade, which has actually coincided with my recovery from addiction. Um, I was a press officer for Moda Sports Management, who are a big management company, and they looked after Michael Van Gerwen. I was his press officer when he became world champion and became world number one. Now I'm doing commentary, and I also have a role with the PDPA, as their communications manager. That's come about because of lockdown, as we try to improve communication to let the players know that we're there. And obviously, it ties in nicely with the role that I now do for you at Sporting Champs in the education team. My specialism is gambling addiction, and that is because I'm a gambling addict in recovery. So right now, I'm keeping busy, keeping my recovery going with Zoom meetings and that kind of thing, talking to my sponsor. Couple of times a week or whenever I need to, and just staying connected and having a bit of structure. So it's different, it's challenging, but I feel as if, and you may agree with this, Tony, that people that have been through the 12-step process or are in the 12-step process are almost better equipped to deal with lockdown than the wider population.
Absolutely, I think the program is very important to me, and I try to work my program to the best of my ability. Um, and that we've got a kind of um, guidebook, haven't we? And
Yeah.
when we get into the rooms, um, and we get the 12 steps and we start to go through the steps, it's a guidebook to life. And we're very lucky, I feel, that we've got that, and the people out there maybe haven't. Some people intuitively and emotionally and mentally know how to handle situations. Um, but for us guys, it doesn't seem to be the case. Just a little bit on your history, Chris. How did you, um, what did how did your gambling addiction come about?
Yeah, well, I was 17 when I placed my first bet and it won. And it's quite a common story actually. It was a £2 accumulator on football. I'm not sure if Arsenal were in it actually. I think they might have got beat, Tony, in that one. Um, but it was 175 to one winner. So as a 17-year-old lad, collecting 350 quid in cash from a betting shop gave me a real thrill. It gave me a really big buzz. Um, but actually, as I've gone through the recovery process, I now recognise the signs of an addict. Many, many years before I ever placed a first bet, I used to be um, addicted to things like Championship Manager as a kid. I'd put a suit on if I was in a cup final and really get lost in it and think that, I was really the manager of Sheffield Wednesday. And a lot of things that I did as a child, I had to do compulsively. I couldn't stop doing the things that I enjoyed. So if anything made me feel good, whether it be Championship Manager, chocolate, alcohol, or gambling, then I'd want to do it to an extreme. So it started when I was 17, the gambling side of it, and I very, very quickly became what I now regard as an addict. Didn't really go through the phase, as it was almost, I was a child and then I was in active addiction. And for the next 5 or 6 years, I gambled almost every day. Sometimes that would be with thousands of pounds in my pockets, going to a casino, thinking that I was going to bring down the Bank of Monte Carlo. But other days it would be scratching around down the back of the sofa, looking for 20 pence, so I could go to the betting shop and get a horse racing accumulator on, just so I could have some action that day, just so I could feel a sense of hope, just so I could feel alive, really, because I was dependent on gambling. And when people talk about their experiences, like yourself, with alcohol, with substances, I recognise all the same things. I was dependent on what gambling was giving me. So that went on for a period of 5 or 6 years. And with gambling, there are obviously some unique challenges, one of them being financing it. And when it's not going well, that's very, very difficult. So my mind was taken up most of the time with either gambling or trying to get money to gamble with. And that included borrowing from financial institutions, but also from friends and family, often under false pretenses as well. Although I would believe my own head when I said to them, can you lend us £100 and I'll give it you back in half an hour? You know, I'd believe that. It's completely insane, but I'd believe that I was definitely going to win every time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. Every time I went out to gamble, I think today's going to be the day, you know, I'm going to win today. And the financial mess that I was creating, I could only see it being solved by the very thing that created it, which was gambling. So it's just like that old analogy about digging a hole and keeping digging, basically. And that's what I was doing for a long time. And then one day in 2010, the walls just felt like they were closing in. I woke up one morning and I'd had enough. And I said to myself, as an addict does, today is the last day. So I'm either going to win everything back with a little amount of money that I've got, or I'm going to kill myself. And I set about it, and usually when I went out gambling, it'd go up and down for a bit. I'd win a bit, lose a bit, win a bit, lose a bit, and eventually it would all be lost. But that particular did not hit one winner at all day. And within an hour, I went home. I lived in a shared house. I found some pills. One of my friends took sleeping pills. So I went up to his room and took what I thought were the sleeping pills out of his drawer, went up onto the moors, sat down on a bench, swallowed all these pills and made a genuine attempt to take my own life. By the grace of God, they weren't the pills that I thought they were. And that was a very lucky escape for me. But that's when I'd actually been taken to the GA rooms by my mum a couple of times during this period because she recognised that I had a problem long before I was willing to admit it. But after that, that's when I first started seeking help off my own back, really. And it's been a 10-year bumpy journey for me, recovery. And I think it's wonderful, anyone who can, you know, get it straight away. But I think that's quite a rare experience. And I think for me, it has involved relapse and it has involved ups and downs. And it's for most of the last 10 years, I've been bet-free. But actually, some of the relapses have been almost more damaging than the time I was in active addiction all the time, because you can start to build up your life, your finances, your relationships, and then it just feels like you pull the rug from under your own feet. So the relapse is a really important part of my story and something that I always try and share just to try and empathise with other people that are going through that kind of thing, because it can happen. It's almost, at times, it can almost feel inevitable to happen for an addict. But I've learned over the last 18 months or so that it doesn't have to be that way. And I've had additional support. I've been to more meetings. I would even say better meetings. We've got a sponsor for the first time and really working the programme and getting counselling as well. You know, I've had counselling through Sporting Chance. So I've got a really strong recovery now. And actually, I've realised that over the preceding years, I was kind of white knuckling it. I was sort of struggling all the time. I don't think about gambling. I've not had a bet or a drink now for 16 months, and it doesn't come into my mind at all to do either of those things. I actually think the alcohol was a big part of that, because for me, while alcohol was never my demon drug, my primary addiction, it was often a gateway to gambling, if not because it lowered my defences, made me feel invincible, all that kind of thing. It would also make me depressed. You know, alcohol's a depressant, so after drinking I'd feel down, and the thing that I knew that worked to bring me back to a level would be gambling. And I think that's why we do these things, it's because they work, isn't it? They change the way they feel, and they're successful in doing that. So as insane as some of the behaviour is, there's actually a method in the madness. They did the trick, but I'm very, very grateful and very glad to be where I am now.
That's fantastic, Chris. That's just what I needed to hear, to be honest with you. And if I identify back with you just a little bit, you know, even before I picked up drink, the kids, and you know, as a kid, you know, all that fear, all that all the panic attacks when I was at school, and you know, not being comfortable with myself, thinking that I was ugly, and you know, it's, you know, even before all the insecurities, even before I put this drug inside of me, and you know, I really identify with the thoughts and feelings of the gambling addict. You know, we've got the same solution at Sporting Chance for gamblers, for drug takers, because it's the same thoughts and feelings. You know, where you're thinking about a bet, I was thinking about a drink. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the solutions are the same for us guys. And I got to the jumping off point like you. I didn't take the pills, but I didn't know how to kill myself, to be honest with you. I was sitting there, you know, kind of didn't want to live. I didn't want the pain anymore, but I didn't know how to kind of kill myself. You know, I was stuck in that kind of, I don't know what they call it, purgatory, do they? Just kind of jumping off. We call it in the rooms jumping off point. You know, it's just and luckily for me, I surrendered and got into the rooms. And I, unlike you, I got it straight away. You know, I did, and I can really hear, you know, you saying about relapse, because it mentions in the 12 steps alcohol once, you know, and then it's about me. You know, I'm the problem, I'm the solution. You know, so relationships, you know, all these things that to be kind of looked at. And I heard I heard 3 S's that we talk about: sharing, and that's what you've done today, and that's brilliant. And I heard steps. I heard the steps in there. Your powerlessness over your addiction, and you know the way that alcohol would maybe swapped it as well. You know, 85% of people were cross addicted. You know, and I don't bet today, and it's not because I don't feel like I need to, or I can pretty much take it or leave it. But I know it might lead back to a drink. You know, and I've seen enough people out there that swapped their drug of choice, swapped their drug of choice, and started out, and before know it, they're back on the crack, and they're back on the drink, or they're back on the betting and stuff. But so you're sharing, you've done the steps, your sponsorship, you know, you said another S there. And the last one for me is service, and that's what we're kind of doing today. We're giving it away to keep it. And I'm out there, you know, 6 weeks into recovery, I screamed from the rooftops, you know, it's Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was kind of and sick and tired of my secrets, you know, and they say you're only sick as your secrets, and I just wanted it all. And everybody's anonymity has to be for themselves, and there's reasons why you don't, you know, declare it straight away. And I think everybody's got to go their own path and their own journey into their own anonymity. But I was like, oh, you know, I knew from that very first meeting that I would not need to drink again a day at a time for the rest of my life. And I know it's a day at a time, but it don't. So it's an absolute pleasure, mate, to catch up with you. And I'm glad to hear the dance people are still practicing. And you've taught me something new here today, that you're actually probably one of the only sports that they can do it on their own, mate. So you know, just finishing with the lockdown. You said a little bit earlier, but you know, just around if you can sum it up and finish it for us, how you're doing today, and a little bit about, you know, your industry, and we kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, well, for me personally, because of the recovery program that I've got, because I've got, you know, those solid structures in place, I'm finding lockdown surprisingly easy. You know, I'm not bored at all. I'm keeping my days structured, getting up at a reasonable time, doing my bits of work. I've got a dartboard up myself, so I'm having a little throw here when I can, you know, spending time with my girlfriend, watching Netflix, but watching, you know, 1 or 2 episodes of a series, not the whole 12 in one go. Getting out for a walk every day. And for me, it is a walk. It might develop into a run at some point, but right now, you know, I'm sticking with a walk, just enjoying the weather for that half an hour that I can. And I'm finding it, yeah, fairly straightforward. I'm missing the sort of physical and spiritual connection of being in the rooms of the meetings. I do find that can be missing slightly from doing it online, but that's the only sort of small negative. I'm actually finding it quite. I don't know if I should be surprised with how well I seem to be dealing with it, but I find it.
This too shall pass, Chris. This shelter.
Exactly, but I live in a relatively small flat as well, and if someone would have sort of told me this was coming, I think I would have feared it. But actually, I find because of the recovery program that I work, I just accept life on life's terms and get on with it. And I think that's really important. In terms of darts, I think that the darts players have probably got some positives better than people in other sports. The fact that they can practice and train at home, the fact that they've got tournaments to play in now through the Darts at Home initiative that the PDC have put on. There is, there's financial support that the PDPA have put for them as well, and mental and emotional well-being with the partnership with Sporting Chance. But I think there's also some challenges. It's a sport that is very, very busy. Generally most players are aware, used to being around a lot of people every weekend. Also, they rely on the prize money, whereas players in team sports are paid wages. They rely on the prize money. And the top boys, they'll be fine. They've got perhaps a few million in the bank, but the ones lower down the rankings may really be struggling right now. So I just hope that people are sort of keeping that structure, being positive, finding the positives in a time like this. And I think, we've talked about a few of those. But if they are really, really in need of help, not being afraid to pick up the phone, reach out and ask for it. And the one big positive is, of course, that professional darts players have got the same access to Sporting Chance as Premier League footballers have. And they should be aware of that and make sure they're not afraid to pick up the phone. Because, in different circumstances for you and I, but we had to do it. And I've had to do it many times after relapses. In fact, walking back through the doors after a relapse for me has always been harder than the first time. But, if I cannot gamble and you can't drink, I'm sure that people can deal with emotions and pick up the phone and just be courageous enough to say, look, I need help. And that's fine. We all do. We all need help. So, I think there's a lot of good stuff going on in darts. There's a lot of good stuff going on in my life. And I think it's a nice, positive place to end, really. I'm just really, really grateful that all that stuff is behind me before this came about, because I dread to think what would be going on now.
Absolutely. God bless you, Chris.
Cheers, Brilliant. Tony. Thanks.
Big hug. Big virtual hug.
There you go, mate.